you're a woman adult onset bow hunter, which is like the one demographic that's still going to save us, maybe, as far as just overall numbers. But did you have somebody help you out who was like, all right, get this bow or do this, or did you just strike out on your own?
Okay, so for the record, I come from, yes, I did, but also I just want to make it clear for people who are thinking about getting into hunting. I come from an extreme, I'd even call it radical family of anti-hunters. The point where if it even comes up, like when I go grouse hunting, my father will walk out of the room. It is not up for discussion. I had to hide getting my firearms license. It's a really contentious subject in my household. For a while there, my sister was a vegan. It was a very different time. So I had to really sit down and for me, it just came down to meat. So it was all about, if I'm going to eat meat, I want to be responsible for that meat, or at least be aware of where it came from. I never in a million years expected to fall in love with hunting.
Yep.
I always tell people I'm in a sandwich. Like I love hunting. I hate killing. I love eating meat. So the two outweigh the one, and so therefore I hunt. But
yep.
It has really it took me aback to see just how much I love being out there stalking. Which is silly because I've always done it. When I was in Girl Guides or I was fishing, I was always getting distracted on game trails and trying to sneak up to animals as best I could. But I love animals, so I thought there's no way that I'd enjoy hunting. But turns out I do. But I still hate killing. Love hunting, hate killing.
Yeah, well, it's not the best part about it. That's for sure.
No. And then the person who took me under her wing is Lacey. Do you know Lacey Kelly? She's Captain Lacey Kelly. She's a fishing and hunting guide in Florida. And she knew I was really interested. And so she gave me her bow. She had just she just caught a brand new bow. And so she gifted me her Matthews. And that was it for me. I was just obsessed.
I could see that. Let's back up a hair to this family of yours. Family. I saw.
Sorry, Mom. Sorry, Dad.
I highly doubt your family's going to listen to this podcast. So I think we can say what mine's not either. You might be the only person I've ever talked to in my life who did a social media thing on eating fish eyeballs, who has a sister who's a vegan. You might be
she's not a vegan anymore.
Oh, okay. Why did she stop?
She found the light. Because she was sick.
Yeah.
She really got sick. She was purple and green. She was not feeling well at all. She did it for 7 years. She was very educated on what she was doing, but she just couldn't get the protein she needed.
Yeah, it's pretty tough. It's a lot of people, and there's so much bio variability. I know we're going way off in a tangent here, but like it's just not the right choice for a lot of people. Like even if you feel like ethically compelled to do it, like your body just might not be. You might not come from the right place to be a vegan in your ancestry or whatever. Do your parents eat meat?
Yeah, that's why it was always so frustrating to have this discussion around the table. It's like, Dad, but you eat beef. Why would you be opposed to me going and killing my deer? And he totally admits ignorance and says that that's one thing that he knew he was ignorant on and didn't want to discuss it further.
Man. I think if he spent one day in a slaughterhouse, he'd be like, April, go shoot some deer. That's what we're eating now.
Agree.
But,
I agree. Yeah.
I mean, I know you know all this stuff. We know the whole conservation, the money side of things, and the funding comes from us, and a lot of the habitat, a lot of the public land, all that stuff. But I've just seen a few examples in my life. Like I have vegetable farms by my house. Like where I live in Minnesota used to be sod farms, and then organic vegetables got hot. And so instead of growing grass, they started growing carrots and cabbage, whatever else. And those organic farmers, they, first of all, there's no calorie left after they harvest. Like all the deer move off in the winter because there's nothing left. But they hire these little girls. They come out there. I don't know. They're like high school girls. They come out. They kill all the caterpillars in there. They pull them off the plants. Hack them up. They trap gophers on there. I've gotten permission to hunt some of them. So I've killed deer eating organic carrots. And like you go by in shotgun season when the firearm season is open, they are piss pounding the deer on these organic vegetable farms in the suburbs of the Twin Cities. And I'm sitting here like, nobody eating organic, like going to Whole Foods or something and buying organic carrots is going to think like, okay, how many freaking caterpillars and butterflies and gophers and you know what I mean? And deer got shot or killed, but like that consumptive lifestyle that we all have, like it's easy to just kind of turn a blind eye, but those examples out there, or like vineyards out in California where they're shooting pigs, and, avocado farms where they're shooting black-tailed deer, like, you eat a bowl of guacamole, you don't ever think a black-tailed deer got shot because of it, but that stuff exists,
Yeah, it does, and that's a good point.
So
back to your fish eyeballs, though. Just can we talk about the fish eyeballs for a second? Because
sure.
Right now your listener thinks I'm out of my mind right now. I'm writing an article on how to eat a whole fish, and so eating the eyeballs is a part of that discussion.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say that I wake up every day and go, I really feel like fish eyeballs today, but I do wake up these days and feel like eating a fish head, and that's been part of this article. That's changed my mind. But
so I knew that. I knew you were doing that on the eating the entirety of the fish, and I think it's. I mean, I'm ripping on you a little bit, but I think it's awesome. Like
it's all right. No, you can rip all you want. No, I'll tell you a secret. The more you rip on me, the more comfortable I'll be. So just let her fly.
That's what Brett told me. Did you listen to Rogan's podcast?
Sometimes.
So he just had Glenn Villeneuve on, one of the guys from Life Below Zero. And I listened to like half of it. The Alaska bush, living out in the middle of nowhere. He had one of the guys who's like way out there, walking 60 miles out into a lake in a little kind of like a wall tent cabin type of thing. But they got into the discussion of like, what are you eating every day surviving out there? And he was talking about how, before he did this, he studied up like what did the natives up there eat for years, and like how did they utilize the animals with like limited, they don't have a stove and they don't have a microwave and all kinds of stuff. And he was talking about like pickling caribou tenderloins in the stomach contents and eating like the lichen in the like a salad almost, because like you and I can't walk out there and eat lichen, but if
I eat lichen.
Well,
I eat lichen.
He's
Usnea lichen. I think it's every time I get strep throat, I go out there and eat lichen.
Really? He said you couldn't eat it.
Hell yeah. Usnea lichen? Oh, he's talking about the acid in it. No, I don't
know what kind of lichen he was talking about.
Well, there's this Usnea lichen. It's USNEA, and I use it in all of my medicines. I use it in everything. I dry powder it. I infuse it. What else? I put it in tinctures.
What's in it? What's the benefit of it?
There are acids in it, so that's why you're not supposed to eat a bunch of it. But it helps kick strep throat, and it's an antiseptic. You can put it into wounds. It's good to have on hand. And the thing about Usnea is that it doesn't grow anywhere that's polluted. So a lot of the times if I go out and I notice that trees don't have lichen on them when they should, I'm usually looking around to see what's going on. And then once I get into an area where I can see it again, like old man's beard, I know I'm in the right spot. I know that it's not polluted.
Huh.
Yeah, and you can tell what you do is you go to grab it, because some people get confused between it and Spanish moss. But if you go to grab it and pull, you'll notice at the core, it's really elastic. And as you pull it, there's almost like this little strand of white that'll come out, and the rest of it's hollow. And you'll know because it feels like an elastic. And you should definitely put some in your pocket to keep it on hand. But only take it off trees that have already fallen, or if it's on the ground, because you don't want to harm anything out there.
I have never thought of doing that. And hearing you describe it, I feel I'm not into foraging the way you are. I mean, we look for mushrooms and all kinds of stuff, and I find myself like gravitating toward that a little bit because there's just more information available, and it's like, less likely you're going to screw up and eat something that's going to be really bad. But I think, I was listening to something the other day where they were talking about like how low our soil quality is in a lot of the farmland regions because we've taken so much out of it, and then you have these wild places that haven't been farmed and haven't been, had years and years and years of ag on them. And you think about probably the quality of some of the nutrients in what's growing out there. And there's, and I realize it's just like hunting. It's not feasible for everybody to walk out there and forage for their own stuff, but there's a viability to it that's so appealing, like in today's world.
And it's more accessible for me anyway. It's really filled the space because I am busy. And when I'm in Australia, for now, until we move into our new place, I'm stuck in this part of the country that's just way too busy for me. And foraging is super accessible. I mean, I avoid polluted roads, obviously, because you don't want to eat dandelions from a polluted road or from a busy road. But it's the sort of thing where you can take children to do it. It's way less dangerous than mushroom picking for the most part. And I just feel like $1 million. I mean, I just have never understood how people uproot things like chickweed to replace it with plants that look great when you can, I go out almost every day and grab this whole bundle of chickweed and turn it into pestos and salad dressings and shooters. And, I put that shit on everything. Weeds eat all these, people call them weeds, but there's so many, there's so many nutrients in them.
Maybe this is a weird segue or a tangent here, but do you feel like nature gets it right so much in spite of us, and we're like always stepping in and trying to like make it something more, not palatable in the sense of eating it, even though it applies here, but just like we want nature to be a certain way, but like when you start to appreciate it for what it is and like how viable it is in these crazy situations, and you can find food that's really beneficial to us growing out there all over that we're just driving right past to go to like Burger
everywhere.
King.
I mean, it's everywhere. That's the thing. This is what really gets me. And you want to talk about a tangent? I could really go off on this. Having a child has changed everything because I'm constantly looking for gentle ways to help her. Like last night, for example, she wasn't well and she had a splinter. So we had two things keeping us up. So I made her wild chamomile tea.
Yep.
And then I used lavender essential oil to help draw out the splinter. Right. So it forces you to look into different ways to help your child. And one of the things that gets me is, like, for example, wild chamomile tea. I will almost guarantee you that in your driveway, you have got wild chamomile, but I will also guarantee you that in your cupboard, you probably have a plastic packed box of tea bags that have been bleached full of chamomile tea. I just don't understand why we step over or we go out of our way to kill weeds that we then go and purchase at the store. It's just confusing to me. But a lot of it is just just not being able to identify.
Yep.
Do you know that you have chamomile tea in your driveway?
I don't know if I have chamomile tea in my driveway, but I'm going to look when I get home. Of course, right now it doesn't do me any good because it's under ice.
Yeah.
Because
here's what I want everybody to do. Like, let's start small. I want everybody to Google pineapple weed. That'll do it. Pull up pineapple weed or wild chamomile, and you'll see that in the cracks of your driveway, that little weird petal-free kind of yellow bud that you see. You ever see those little, when you Google it, you'll go, oh my God.
I'm sure.
And if you squish it, it smells like pineapple or apples. That is wild chamomile. So there you go. Start picking from your driveway.
Can I confess something to you? So you've talked about eating fish and drinking tea. I can't eat fish because I'm allergic to fish. I know. I literally think I might hold the record for most fish cleaned and not eaten in my life, because like when I grew up in a family of like, it was crappies and walleyes, they're Finlanders in northern Minnesota. So I was like the 8-year-old boy, 10-year-old boy, 12-year-old boy. Oh, give him the fillet knife. And so I'm like cleaning fish my entire life. And I'm like, guys, I'm breaking out. Like, am I supposed to be doing this? Like, I eat fish, I throw up. And so anyway, I can't eat fish. I can eat salmon and trout, actually.
That's not bad.
You know what's crazy about it? I spent my whole life, we figured it out when I was like 6 years old. I couldn't eat fish. So he's allergic to fish. He's going to freaking die. And so just fish. I can eat shellfish and everything else. And so when I went to Africa, I don't know, 2007 or something, I had to go to a travel nurse and get my shots and all, the malaria pills and whatever. And she was like, what are you allergic to? I said, cats and fish. And she said, I bet you're not allergic to fish. I bet you're allergic to mercury. And I said, well, yeah, I'm like, isn't everybody? And she said, if you try trout or salmon, I grew up. I grew up in one of the only counties in Minnesota that doesn't have a lake, but we have trout streams. So I grew up fly fishing for trout and fishing for trout like crazy, but I never kept them because I'm like, oh, I can't eat them. And so I went home, caught some trout, and I'm like terrified to take a bite, you know. And I realized I can eat trout and salmon, and now salmon, like a post-workout, like salmon and asparagus, I'm like, oh, it's like my favorite meal ever. So anyway, and I don't like tea, but my wife does, so I'm gonna look for that. When you talk, like when I hear you, like I can see the kind of like the enthusiasm when you start talking about foraging and finding foods and like. Were you ever, and maybe I'm wrong here, but were you ever like super into looking for morel mushrooms or shed antlers? Because it feels like a similar kind of pursuit.
Both those things.
Oh, you were?
Yeah. Yo, still am obsessed. Yeah, all those things. And it's the same. I have the same feelings when it comes to fishing, but finding fish. That's why I fish New Zealand so much. I love hunting things. It doesn't matter if I'm hunting for mushrooms or for wild plantain or for fish or for deer. I just love feeling rewarded by finding it. I don't necessarily love what comes next, but I love hunting for stuff.
Yeah.
Shed antlers. There are times where I would rather, I've had more successful days getting a couple of sheds than getting a deer. You know, finding stuff, so much fun.
There's something evolutionary there, I think. Are you like crazy over sight fishing then too?
Yeah.
Me too. That's like, you want to talk about dying and going to heaven. If you can see, like if you're looking for fish, do you bow fish?
I have once in Bolivia. But like with the traditional Bolivian bow. No, I don't do the bow fishing thing. I'm not against it. It's just not, I just don't do it.
Yeah, well, it's sight fishing of a different variety. It's not catch and release sight fishing. But you bow fished in Bolivia? Was that for a TV show or something?
No, I just had been hanging out with with one of the guides, and we had this incredible relationship where I was fascinated by what he was doing with his traditional methods, and he was fascinated by what I was doing with modern methods. And so he started training me with his bow, just in the sand, shooting at targets in the sand. And I took it out to the river, and we were on a river where the fish they're called sablo. They weren't all schooling. They were just individual fish, and they were feeding and tailing. And I was able to get one on my second shot. So it was a highlight of my trip. And I feel so stupid because people are like, what was it like to catch 30-pound Dorado and Taku? And it's, I'm going, well, that was great, but I shot a fish with a traditional Bolivian bow. It was amazing. It was just a really cool moment because all the guides, I couldn't understand what they were saying, but I knew that they had bets that I couldn't do it. And, it was just, and he was so proud of me, and I didn't understand what he was saying, and he had no clue what I was saying, but we were on the same, in that moment, we were the same.